not one of the 46 recommendations in our report would, in our view, compromise or jeopardize that ability in any way.
We haven't seen as much about these recommendations in the press. They haven't generated that much.
We're well aware that some judges, for whom we have a lot of admiration on the court, believe that the judge ought to be in charge of deciding when the public interest advocate is relevant. We think that's not consistent with our traditions. Normally, it isn't the case that the judge gets to decide. This interest gets a lawyer. So we think to have someone who's a dedicated officer designed to protect privacy and liberty interests is a very important safeguard.
And the most critical factor to decide whether to conduct any particular intelligence activity, they have concluded this phone record program is not uniquely valuable enough to justify a massive intrusion on Americans' privacy.
What was the group's assessment of the privacy risks associated with your recommendation that the metadata be stored in private hands? And did you speak to the telephone companies to explore whether they are willing or able to hold the metadata?
We did speak with the telephone companies about that, and they obviously would rather not hold that data. Our judgment about the government holding the data is that the primary danger of the 215 telephony metadata program is not if it is used only in the way in which its use is authorized, but that it leaves sitting out there a huge amount of information, personal information about Americans that could be abused in awful ways.
We've seen this movie before. We know how it ends. We know that eventually, if that much information remains in the hands of government for that long, it will eventually be abused. It will be manipulated for partisan and otherwise nefarious purposes, and we can't let that happen.
And thank you, gentlemen, for this report. I think it'll be a real help as we work to improve our privacy and surveillance laws. You say that for key surveillance authorities, quote, the government should, to the greatest extent possible, report publicly on the total number of requests made and the number of individuals whose records have been requested.
Sunlight is the best of disinfectants, as Justice Brandeis said, and that it's very important for the American people, unless there's a very strong national security justification on the other side, to get a sense of what their government is doing.
Giving many of us